you have the West that is feeling the pressure from the ICJ and ICC. I just covered out the ICJ was unable to stop the offensive in Rafah, but despite Israel and the West outright ignoring international law, the ruling class in our country see the threat that it is, that their barbarism is being exposed on the international scale, because these Zionists like Mike Johnson know that the ICJ is not going to stop Israel in their campaign, but it is very devastating for them in terms of the narrative battle. And they realize they're losing the narrative battle. And when you have a fascist backed up, whenever you have these colonialists backed up, you see their thuggery. You see the true gangster behavior that they have. And it shocks me that to this day, they are still saying the quiet part out loud. Here's Mike Johnson railing against the concept of international law because they know they will be found guilty and they will be next. It's crazy they keep saying this part out loud. Let's listen, and I'll be interested in your reaction.
America should punish the ICC and put Karim Khan back in his place. And if the ICC is allowed to threaten Israel's leaders, we know that America will be next. There is a reason that we've never endorsed the International Criminal Court, because it is a direct affront to our own sovereignty. We don't put any international body among or above American sovereignty, and Israel doesn't do that either. Congress is reviewing all of our options right now. We have some very aggressive legislation that we're going to push as quickly as possible. It will impose sanctions. And if the ICC moves forward with its absurd warrant arrest or request, this is going to be an even bigger international problem.
Now, guys, this is what a real criminal looks like. It's not Jamal hanging outside of a gas station struggling to get by. Like, when white America think about criminal, that's what they think about, the black guy in the hoodie. No, it's this guy, this nerd in glasses with a suit that is the biggest gangster criminal in the world. Now, Dan, do you have any general reactions before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, white supremacy personified, U.S. exceptionalism personified, colonialism personified. Mike Johnson is a coward. You know, like the Marxist Mike Tyson taught us, man. Everyone is tough. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And Mike Johnson came. Tyson's not a real Marxist, but just wanted to get that in there. Mike Johnson.
We're both big
Mike
fans.
Mike Johnson came to Columbia University during our encampment. He wouldn't even come close to the actual encampment led by hundreds and hundreds of students. I was camped out there with other professors and alumni in full solidarity. We wanted to be the first ones arrested when they came after us. And Mike Johnson had an opportunistic press conference, within 50 yards of us, but wouldn't even come and look with his own eyes what we were all about. Because Mike Johnson is the ultimate mouthpiece for U.S. militarism, U.S. colonialism. He is a war criminal. The day will come when the everyday people of Kansas and of Iowa and of this country take power, and we'll have proletarian cells and proletarian bars to put the Mike Johnsons behind. It's only a question of time. So they sound all pompous and holier than thou now, but their day will come.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And I want to show you guys see this is the gangster Mike Johnson making these unhinged threats to sanction the ICC. What does it say that a criminal court is a threat to your sovereignty? What does it say that Mike Johnson and neocons in the West is willing to throw the concept of international law? Because they support the ICC when arrest warrants were put on Putin. They support it when it's gone after Africa. They're willing to throw out the concept of international law for Israel. Now, so that's why it's crazy to me that they keep saying this quiet part out loud. And what's wild to me, because Israel and Zionism, they have dominated the ICC, and the ICC has essentially been their puppet for decades. Because this is the prosecutor that everyone's pretending, well, I won't say everyone, the Zionists, which are the minority, the global majority are against Zionism. I just got to emphasize that. You have Zionists in the Western media pretend that this is a rogue prosecutor that's supporting Hamas. And just like Claudine Gay, these people that are in the institutions that are going after Israel are far from radicals, are far from Midwestern Marx level radicals, far from RBN level radicals. These are people that are just doing their jobs in rioting institutions. But even within those rioting institutions, they're like, hey, come on, man, this Zionism shit's too far. Like Claudine Gay, who criticized Palestinian protesters, but she was publicly lynched for essentially saying that we got to support the freedom of speech. Now, here's the top ICC prosecutor that essentially buys into the bullshit of Zionism. This is the person that they are melting down about. Now, and it's not even a criticism of him. I'm just showing you guys how unhinged Zionists are. That they're pretending that he's an agent of Hamas. Top ICC prosecutor says claim that he's equating Israel to Hamas is nonsense. So that's him saying, oh, no, I don't think you guys are worse than Hamas. I'm just doing my job. Look, Karim Khan tells the Sunday Times that Israel has the right to protect itself and its civilians, but not to commit war crimes or crimes against humanity. Once again, a very rational position that is actually pro-Zionist. Because like China said, like Russia said, and what I believe, a hostile colonial genocidal power does not have the quote-unquote right to defend itself against the people that they're colonizing. And now the last part I'll show, and I want to get your thoughts on this, so you guys know I'm not overreacting. Look, this is the prosecutor they're saying that's secretly Hamas. He said in the interview, I am not saying that Israel with its democracy and its Supreme Court is akin to Hamas. Of course not. Sir, are you serious? So this is him accepting the premise that Israel is a democracy and apartheid states are inherently not democracy. And this is him also saying that, well, of course, Israel's not as bad as Hamas. And during my coverage, I said Israel will be blessed to be compared to Hamas. Now, this is not a criticism of the prosecutor. The overall point I am making, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that the ICC and the institutions couldn't be more friendly and accommodating to Israeli talking points. And they are still threatened. So do you have any thoughts, Danny, before I move on to my last few points here?
Yeah. Finally, the world is waking up to the truth about Israel. This is the antithesis of democracy. Any person who dares to speak up in defense of the people of the land will be prosecuted, will be punished in Israel. You're not allowed to fly any Palestinian flag or even mention Palestine and its true history. So Israel, not so different than other settler colonial societies like the United States, what Rhodesia was before the people of Zimbabwe and Robert Mugabe and Tongogara and all these people's generals overthrew white supremacist rule there, just as the Palestinians and the people of the Middle East will in Palestine. But it's good that humanity can finally see the truth about Israel. Of course, it's the greatest tragedy of my life. I'm 46. I've been doing this work since the mid 1990s. I've never lived through such a horrific event like these ongoing genocidal attacks against Palestine, and of course the violence in the West Bank and in all of 48 or occupied Palestine. Max Blumenthal's book Goliath: Love and Loathing in Greater Israel serves us as a great textbook, if you will. Some 600, 700 pages. I used it in our Midwestern Marx Institute classes to go deep into Israeli society and to get a sense of how these human beings have been dehumanized. Because when we're taught that another people is inferior and they're subhuman, we ourselves are dehumanized. When we have a steady diet of white supremacy and racism and colonialism, that dehumanizes human beings. So the Israelis can only be freed by the colonized. The colonized know their dignity, know their true worth. That's why up until their final breaths in Rafah, in Khan Yunis, in Gaza City, and in the north, where there's now widespread famine. And again, like you're saying, this is not according to any radical observers or analysts like myself or yourself. This is coming straight from the UN and the
Yeah,
ICC. These are
yeah,
imperialist bodies at the end of the day. It's the imperialists that activate these bodies. So when a Samantha Power, Miss Genocide herself, says that, yes, this is a full-blown colonial famine, we should listen to them. It's the vast majority of humanity who has woken up. We see protests of hundreds of thousands in Algeria, in Nigeria, in Somalia, in Pakistan, across the West, Paris, London. There's no way Israel is going to be able to undo in any type of public relations way, even though it's very clear that CNN and MSNBC and Fox and the full gamut of mainstream outlets, the New York Post, the Daily News, the New York Times, they've been fully complicit in this genocide, and we need to keep calling them out. And that's why we say that October 7th, it was a definitive cleavage with what was. It was a definitive colonial breaking point for humanity. Things will never be what they were before October 7th. And again, that's why I wrote the book that the Institute published. This is Genocide, because we're so under attack. That's why professors
yeah.
like myself are being fired. It's the new McCarthyism 2.0, but they can't dox all of us. They can't suspend every student. They can't suspend every graduation. So keep talking about Palestine. The more of us who speak up, the more difficult it is for them to isolate, dox, fire, and do whatever they can to those of us on the front lines.
Yeah, well said. And as we wrap up, there's one more quick topic. I want to get your thoughts about the Kenya president. So that it's gonna be a really quick segment, and I have a hotspot video on this topic coming out soon. We're going a little bit over time, so I'm gonna rely on my hotspot video to break this down. This is following more threats in the culture of intimidation that was levied against international law on behalf of Zionism. So I have a hotspot video coming out on this very soon. But in summary, there was a war crimes inquiry that was supported by the ICC that was started in 2021. The same ICC war crimes inquiry was launched before the campaign into Gaza, my friend. Which that alone destroys the talking point that this war started on October 7th, right? So you had the lead director of the Mossad, Yossi Cohen, who was often described as the unofficial spokesperson for Netanyahu. And this story outlines how, in great detail, how he got orders from the highest up in Israel, where they was threatening the old, because she's no longer the top prosecutor now, Bensouda, the old ICC prosecutor. They was threatening her life, and they threatened the life of her family. And it came directly from Yossi Cohen, the director of the ICC. They even said, I'm gonna see if I can find the quote. Of course, they bury it in the Guardian. Where look at this quote. Look, you got to scroll. Jesus Christ, you had to scroll all the way down here to find a quote. Look, that's like 3-4 paragraphs. Here's the quote I was looking for. I already did my hotspot video on it. That's why I knew what it was. Look, according to accounts shared with ICC officials, he is alleged to have told her, "You should help us and let us take care of you. You don't want to be getting into things that could compromise your security or that of your family." Can you imagine the reaction of the West if Hamas was openly threatening court officials and their families?